Hi everybody, so as always, welcome back to Intro to Biology for Majors, or BIOL 1224. This PowerPoint is going to cover your Chapter 9 from your Openstax textbook Biology 2E, and this chapter covers cell communication. So this slide breaks down our objectives for this PowerPoint. The first is to recognize characteristics of the 4 cell types of cell signaling that we're going to cover. And then the second is to identify mechanisms of nerve cell signals, which we don't dig into a ton, but at the very end I kind of tell you what they want you to know from this PowerPoint in that aspect. So this slide is going to start talking about the 4 types of cell signaling that we want to really discuss and dig into in this PowerPoint. So this image on the right side, you don't have to know this image specifically. I was trying to find something that kind of showed you, for example, a cell that is sending things across to another cell. And I have plenty of images following this, but I do want to go ahead and just talk about the 4 types of cell signals that we are going to cover in depth in the next few slides. So the first of those 4 is the autocrine signaling. Auto means self, so this is when a cell will signal itself, and so I'll get into that in the next slide. Then they have signaling across gap junctions, and those are cells that are actually able to communicate with each other by joining each other with a gap junction. So you all will see that here in a little bit. And then we have paracrine signaling, which is signaling a nearby cell, so it's within the same general vicinity. And then you have endocrine signaling, which endocrine signaling actually targets cells that are extremely far away, so even in another part of the body. So all of these are types of signaling that cells do to one another in order to either share something from within themselves, a different kind of cell, or to change the function of a cell around it. So this is how cells communicate with one another. They signal each other in different ways, depending on where they are and what their needs are. So autocrine signaling is right here, cell signals itself. So anything that you find in parentheses within the next few slides is going to be really key. So yeah, autocrine signaling is cell signaling itself. And if you think of the word and you break it down, auto means self, right? So we're going to talk about signaling itself. So autocrine signaling is a form of cell signaling in which a cell secretes a hormone or chemical messenger called an autocrine agent that binds to autocrine receptors on that exact same cell, so leading to changes within the cell. So basically, this image that I have kind of worked up for you, we're going to have an image of each different type of signaling on the slide that corresponds with it. This is your first. So this is autocrine signaling. This is the cell we're talking about, and the signal is literally signaling itself. This happens in embryonic development, so early stages of forming a baby. This happens in inflammation, when there's pain, and also in viral infections. So the second form of cell signaling we're going to talk about is paracrine signaling. So this kind of signaling targets nearby cells, so cells that are close by in proximity. So we have quick response across a distance, often happens between nerve cells, and often involves enzymes. So if this is our image, so if these are our 2 cells, this cell is going to be sending these little molecules across to a nearby cell. So this cell is not far away, it's very close. And then my notes here say paracrine signaling is a form of cell signaling or cell-to-cell communication in which a cell produces a signal to induce changes in nearby cells, altering the behavior of those cells. So the third kind of cell signaling that we're discussing is signaling across gap junctions, and this targets adjoining cells. So this is when cells are so nearby that they are touching. These water-filled gap junctions, these channels will open up, allowing things like calcium ions to pass through, but they are too small for proteins or DNA, and it's a very quick and easy process for cells. So in animals, these are called gap junctions, and in plants, they're actually called plasmodesmata. They do the same thing. They're connections between the plasma membranes of 2 neighboring cells. They're water-filled channels, and they allow signaling molecules called intracellular mediators to diffuse between 2 different cells. So the fourth type of cell signaling we're talking about is endocrine signaling, and endocrine signaling targets distant cells, and this can mean cells in completely different types of the body. So this sends signals to distant cells using hormones. It's, for example, used by the thyroid and pituitary gland, and it's a slower signal, but it's longer lasting once it takes place. So the signal obviously takes longer to get to the second cell because it's a longer distance, but it is a long-lasting effect. So a good example of endocrine signaling would be a signaling molecule is released by one cell, and it travels through the bloodstream and binds to receptors on a distant target cell completely somewhere else in the body. So it's a very long distance, long ranging form of cell signaling. So here are 4 key takeaways for this chapter. Number 1 is that autocrine signals signal themselves, right? So an autocrine signal is self-signaling. Number 2 is that gap junction signals are designed for cells to signal adjoining cells. Number 3 is paracrine signals involve generating signals that travel a short distance, like a nerve cell. And then in the very beginning, one of our objectives involved nerve cells. So they do want you to know that paracrine signals are nerve cells, and also that nerve cell signals must be degraded by enzymes in order to terminate the signal. So that's the 4 key takeaways that we have from this chapter. I think that chapter 9 actually sums up module 2 of your class. So you guys are done with module 2. You should be able to move on to go through your study guide after going through all these lectures. Hopefully you've kind of been taking notes or even going through your study guide as we talk. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or concerns before exam 2, please reach out to me. Thanks.